Israel rescued 2 of their hostages in an operation that Hamas says killed 100 Palestinians in the southern city of Rafah. That whole thing probably throws some kinks in possible ceasefire negotiations. And then the United Nations and Al Jazeera are increasingly coming under pressure for their associations, we'll say, in Gaza. And they're not saying a lot, which is surprising. I feel like these are the kind of allegations they would want to take head on. It's a lot to get into, so I'm glad you're here. I'm recording this at 10 a.m. Central on Monday, February 12th, 2024. Overnight, we got news that an Israeli extraction team moved into the southern Gaza city of Rafah, where they rescued 2 Israeli hostages and brought them back home. What we have from that is that the extraction team moved near this facility around 1 a.m., and we've got a little video footage here that I'll show. They say around 1:50 a.m., the forces breached the second-floor apartment with explosives and within minutes killed the 3 guards that were watching over the hostages. They say within 1 minute of the rescue, so a pretty quick operation here, all things considered, the Israeli Air Force carried out massive airstrikes against terrorists in the area to aid in the extraction of the hostages. They say the 2 hostages were taken by the Israeli forces in armored vehicles out of Rafah, then put into a military helicopter that brought them to an Israeli hospital. What we heard overnight was, as this was happening, massive strikes against locations in Rafah made it sound like a major military maneuver might be taking place there, like the offensive that a lot of people have thought is coming into Rafah in the near future. It looks like that was all in support of this hostage rescue raid. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, they say that 67 Palestinians have been killed, and that number could rise as rescue operations are still underway. A Reuters journalist at the scene said he saw a vast area of rubble where buildings, including a mosque, had been destroyed. Israel said that most of those killed overnight in this operation were militants. The Gaza Health Ministry says that 70% of the casualties thus far are children. And then Hamas did put out a statement in relation to this, saying, quote, "The occupation army's Nazi attack tonight on Rafah, which has caused the death of over 100 people so far, is a continuation of the genocide and deportation against the Palestinian people. The American administration and President Biden bear full responsibility, along with the occupation government, for this terrible crime." So a couple thoughts as to what we saw here just in the past 12, 24 hours. These, I believe, are the first Israeli hostages successfully rescued by the IDF since this war kicked off. There was one Israeli soldier early on, like in the early days of the ground campaign. It sounded like she was rescued, but the news of that was really kind of kept under wraps. It like popped up a little bit and then went away. Not clear if that actually happened. This one happened. It's true. We got pictures of these hostages back home with their families now, videos and pictures of the raid as it took place from overhead. One of the major sticking points in the ceasefire negotiations was, a lot of folks had said, and rightfully so, the only way that these hostages had been brought home so far was through ceasefire negotiations with Hamas. So if you want to bring the hostages home, the only way to go about doing that, from what we've seen so far, is to set aside some sort of ceasefire, prisoner swap, if you will. In previous iterations, there had been Palestinians held in Israeli jails released in exchange for the Israeli hostages held by Hamas. This might change that dynamic a little bit and give Israel hope that they can go after some of these locations now that they're kind of reduced in terms of how many locations can actually house and hold these hostages in Gaza. More and more, it looks like the majority of these hostages are probably in Rafah, crammed into that location there. And look, Israel just brought 2 of them home. So there might be more pressure. There already is pressure, but there might be more pressure now to continue the military operation and carry out more of these directed raids to rescue the hostages 1 or 2 at a time. Then turning to operations on the ground, the fighting has continued to be pretty intense. It has shifted primarily from northern and central Gaza to much more of a focus on southern Gaza around Khan Yunis. There are still daily engagements taking place up north, but again, the focus and kind of the intensity of the fighting tends to be further south. We have seen a notable decrease in Hamas claimed attacks and media coming out showing their attacks against Israeli forces. And when I say attacks, I mean everything from setting IEDs. We had one of those just a couple weeks ago, firing rockets, mortars, RPG attacks, small arms fire attacks. All of that is significantly down in the last couple weeks here. I went through some of their Telegram channels here before this video and saw that they had posted 4 videos in the past week of everything. that is significantly down, especially given the intensity of the fighting. That would make it seem like the fighting is dying down. It's not. If you shift over to Israeli channels and follow what the IDF is putting out, every single day they have intense combat footage that is coming out from continued operations throughout Gaza. Hamas, on the other hand, the media arm is hurting right now, is the way to put it. It looks like they're not able to put out nearly as much on the information front as they were really even just a couple weeks ago. And then one thing we did get out of Hamas here in the last couple days, they said the Qassam brigades confirmed that the continuous Zionist bombing of the Gaza Strip during the last 96 hours led to the death of 2 prisoners and seriously injured 8 others. And their conditions are becoming more dangerous in light of the inability to move them with appropriate treatment. The enemy bears full responsibility for the lives of those injured in light of the continued bombing. Then turning to a couple of these organizations, they're coming under increasing pressure for their alleged associations in Gaza. We have UNRWA, UNRWA, and then Al Jazeera. Both of these face pretty significant criticism over the last 24 to 48 hours, and they haven't really addressed it, like hardly at all, which is interesting. So starting with UNRWA, nothing really new there. From this United Nations organization, the major aid organization in Gaza, I showed the videos yesterday of the tunnel network that Israel uncovered underneath the UNRWA headquarters in Gaza, showing significant communications infrastructure, if you will, server networks, things like that, with wires running up into the UNRWA headquarters. Again, nothing really coming out at all from the UN or UNRWA. Al Jazeera did post an article that at first look makes it seem like these claims are being dismissed. But really all they do is they cite the original statements by Felipe Lazzarini, the head of the UNRWA, where he said the agency, quote, did not know what is under its headquarters in Gaza, end quote. That's kind of it. I mean, this is a major accusation, kind of twofold, that Israel was hinting at, is that Hamas was using UNRWA as a shield, and they put these major facilities there because they knew Israel would not bomb a UN facility to get to a major Hamas underground network. And the other that I seems like it needs addressing is the accusation that these UNRWA employees in that building knew what was going on and didn't do anything about it. Those accusations stem from a couple different things. First off, it's hard to ignore the amount of drilling and digging, the noise that goes into creating that sort of underground infrastructure. You might not be able to see it, but you can probably feel it and you can definitely hear it. So saying that they had no idea at all, it's tricky from that perspective. We've got wires running up into the UNRWA headquarters. What were those connected to down below ground? And then, of course, there's security cameras and entrances and exit points to these tunnels on the UNRWA grounds. And those security camera, all the footage from those security cameras had been removed before the IDF made it into the building. So there's at least enough there to say, hey, UNRWA, what's going on? You'd think that they would want to address this head on. But for whatever reason, that still hasn't been fully addressed from what I've seen. Then shifting over to Al Jazeera, also facing pretty significant criticism right now. The IDF put out some information yesterday saying that they seized a laptop in the northern portion of the Gaza Strip during military operations that belonged to a man named Mohammed Washa, who, and they published these photos right here. So Washa is a Al Jazeera journalist and has appeared on Al Jazeera recently. And on this laptop, it shows that he was also heavily connected with Hamas, at the very least, participated in some of the training or development of some of these weapon systems. The IDF said that he is a senior Hamas commander. Those terms, when you're talking about an insurgent or a terrorist organization, are very loose and hard to dial in exactly what that means. But either way, this is somebody who, since the war began, has been appearing on Al Jazeera. And these pictures, take them for what they're worth, appear to show him participating in Hamas military activities. Again, this is something that I would think from the outside looking in that Al Jazeera would want to take this head on in some way, shape, or form. I can't find anything on their website addressing this at all, let alone refuting it or explaining how it's fake or not true or how this reporter was removed or is under investigation. None of that. It's not really being reported as of now anywhere outside of official IDF sources and then a handful of publications inside of Israel. Then shifting down to the Houthis in the Red Sea, nothing really changed there, unfortunately. So on February 9th, U.S. Central Command conducted self-defense strikes against 2 mobile unmanned surface vessels, again, more of those USVs, 4 mobile anti-ship cruise missiles, and 1 mobile land attack cruise missile that were prepared to launch against ships in the Red Sea. The following day, on February 10th, Central Command conducted more self-defense strikes against 2 unmanned surface vessels and 3 mobile anti-ship cruise missiles that were prepared to launch also into the Red Sea. And then earlier today, we got news that the U.S. ship Star Iris was targeted by Houthi militants. The Houthis put out a statement saying that a number of suitable missiles targeted the vessel, and the strikes were accurate and direct. The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Organization confirmed that a vessel in the Red Sea was hit by missiles, and they said the crew is reported as safe, and the vessel is proceeding to the next port of call. So again, I mentioned a few days ago, I stand by it. I think we're probably going to see more U.S. and U.K. joint strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. It's just they're not deterred. If the move here is to try to deter the Houthis from carrying out these sorts of attacks against international shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, they haven't stopped. And again, all it takes is one launch every week or so to keep shipping levels relatively suppressed. So my prediction, sometime in the next couple days, we'll probably see what I believe would be the 3rd wave of strikes against Houthi targets all across Yemen. But that's all I've got for now. Of course, if interested in this or other national security subjects, be sure to check out some of the deep dives we put out on Substack. Links in the description below. The article that came out earlier today for free is talking about the Hezbollah financial network. Essentially, it's crazy. I mean, this is a modern military in so many ways, a standing modern military. That's expensive to keep up and maintain. And to do that, Hezbollah is involved in all sorts of illicit activities that have been relatively successful up to this point. I mean, down to things like money laundering through fine art. It's wild what they got their hands in. But anyways, if interested in that, link is in the description below. But thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.